Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to... Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MRC Season 17, Tier 0, Round 6. It is the Monaco Grand Prix here in MRC. We've missed qualifying. This has been quite the shambles. Here we are for the formation lap then. Let's try and settle down. Get everything where it needs to be. Right, so we missed qualifying. There weren't any commentators available. I have stepped in. My name is JP. I will be your solo commentator for tonight. We missed qualifying, so we've got Bobo in the Alpine on pole, followed by Formula W, Armar, Rassam, Saviour, Redcar, Calvin, Lorpe, G-Star Snipes, Jules, Vans, Kisa, Vitalso, Nels, Seb, Smith F1, Dan and MJ. This has been quite the kerfuffle, I must say. But we are here. We are live. I'm absolutely sweating, I must admit. But we are here. We're all good. Hopefully all is well. Okay. Evening, come to watch the pros. Welcome in, Owen. Hope you're having a wonderful Thursday evening. You mentioned the pros. Well, these should be the best drivers in MRC, with Tier 0 being the no assists tier. We've got no ABS, no racing line, nothing. So this should be the elite of the elite. So this should be an absolutely cracking race going forward. Monaco, of course, always a difficult track to overtake at, but in MRC, down all of the tiers really this week. We've had a lot of on-track overtakes. I myself took part in Tier 3, and all I've really learned is it is such a mentally draining race for these drivers. But we are getting ready then. Van's disqualified on the grid. Last car's lining up now. It is Bobo on pole in the Alpine. Formula W on the outside of turn 1. And here we go then. The Monaco Grand Prix. 5 red lights for these Tier 0 drivers. And it is lights out, and away we go. It looks like Bobo got the better reaction time, and the Alpine is already going down the inside into turn 1. It is an Alpine 1-2 as we exit turn 1. Formula W down to 3rd, Rassam 4th. We've got Calvin 5th, Redcar 6th. They all seem to be getting through quite well, all well behaved through Saint-Devote. And we now head down towards the end of the first sector of the lap. Alpine 1 and 2 then. Formula W, not the best start. Quite slow off the line. Not a great reaction time. And there's a bit of contact there with the Mercedes behind him. And he has come to blows, but all pointing in a straight line so far then. All of these drivers seem to have got away well. I don't see any damage anywhere. We didn't have any yellows or anything like that. So we all seem to be running fine. Bobo about a second in the lead now, so that is what he will want to do, is just slowly try and edge away, although he does make a little bit of contact with the wall. No damage done, I don't believe. But all the drivers, like I say, all seem to be in a straight line, all seem to be going well. There's a bit of a train forming already, as is typical with Monaco, really. We've got a Red Bull down the inside at Raskas. That's contact between the two Red Bull drivers. A bit of a risky move there, I must admit, from Vans. And it looks like he may lose out to the Ferrari. He doesn't, luckily, but that was very, very close. Well, too close between the Red Bull drivers as they make contact. MJ is into the pits, potentially with a broken front wing. I think they are changing the front wing, are they? No. Boxing immediately. As I have mentioned, it is a mandatory two-stop, just as it was in real-life F1 in Monaco this year. Is that a strategy then? Start on the soft, see if you can get anywhere on the first lap. If not, box straight onto the hards. I can't say I've seen that any other tiers, but we will see what happens as we go into the tunnel then. On board with Armar down towards the Nouvelle Chicane, I believe that is called. Probably not, but knowing my memory. Alpine 1 and 2. We've obviously got MJ now coming to the hairpin. And it all just sort of settles down now. It all gets a bit calm and quiet for a while. Most people starting on the mediums. Let's have a look at, you know, no penalties yet. We've got Armar up 1, obviously overtaking Formula W, who's gone down 1. Calvin's up 2. Our big loser here, realistically, is Saviour, who's gone down 3 positions from the start. However, he is right on the back of the Aston Martin of Lorpy, potentially looking to make a move here as we head towards the Casino Square. Nothing opening up for him, though. And maybe down into the hairpin, anything, nothing quite going for the V-carb here. And this is going to be a battle that what I would assume will ensue all race long. But he is just going to have to sit in the dirty air. Probably most prolific overtaking spot is down into the hairpin, but he's not had a great exit. And into the tunnel we go. He definitely isn't going to be close enough to make a move down the inside. But like I say, it all just sort of settles down now. We've got Bobo in the lead, Alpine 1-2, Formula W maybe looking to regain some of that ground he lost at the start of the race. Rassam in 4th. Calvin, who is already up 2 positions, is the main gainer in this race, is actually all over the back of the Mercedes and possibly looking to gain yet another place in this race. But obviously, again, it is Monaco, difficult to overtake. But we will see how he does as we ride on board. Up the hill they go. Not close enough. Just harvesting the battery as Jules gets a 3-second time penalty in the Red Bull. I would assume that was acquired at turn 1, as look how close these two are now then. Literally riding his gearbox. No space down the inside, but it's a little snap for Lorpy that is going to give Saviour all the impotence in the world to try and make that move. We'll ride on board with the V-carb driver towards the tunnel again. He needs a good exit. That's what he didn't get last lap. He keeps it a bit straighter, but it's just not close enough, is it? Although he is gaining as we're in the tunnel. Is there going to be enough room to make a move down the inside? There's not. And the V-carb is just going to have to stay frustrated behind the Aston Martin for a little longer. Now the question is, when will these drivers pit? Because that will be the big thing now, as Formula W is actually causing somewhat of a train here between Calvin and Rassam, and Red Car almost looking to join the party as well, as we've got a yellow flag. I can't see what that's for. Everyone's pointing in the right direction and running straight, but we will see what happens as we climb the hill. The V-carb harvesting battery, potentially a move down the inside. Unfortunately not for the Mercedes driver, but we've got a little bit of a train here forming between 4th, 5th and 6th. All battling for 3rd position as the Alpines just, well, get on with it really. We've got 4 cars all trying to share the same piece of tarmac, and besides that, that is really a lot around the grid. We've got Saviour on the back of Lorpy, G-Star trying to get involved in this, and then you've got Jules with his 3-second penalty. Van's under pressure from Kisa. We've got Seb on the back of it also. Maybe looking for a move down the inside. He is definitely close enough. He's maybe going to look for the move. They're so close to contact. Somehow the McLaren gets out the way. But that was very, very lucky there for the McLaren driver. MJ only 7 seconds off the back of the pack now after making that early pit stop. So that might not have been the worst call in the world, as I believe Red Car may have just dropped off of this battle for the time being, recharging the battery, maybe saving the tyres a little bit for now, which is probably quite wise, seeing as it doesn't look like any moves are being made up or down the grid as of yet. We've got our big gainers from the start, and that is really about it. We've got a gaggle of cars all fighting back here though. We've got, who is this, Lorpy, Saviour, G-Star, Jules, Vans, Kisa, all really within the same sort of time frame as each other. As we ride looking backwards with Lorpy towards Saviour. Definitely not close enough to make a move down into the chicane. But they will all continue on. And This is very close now. Calvin, a little bit of contact, almost shoving him, saying, get the hell on with it. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 2, and that is a Haas, and that is Nels down at the chicane into the barriers. I don't know if there's damage on that Haas car, but I would assume so with the way he's taking the corners. That is not ideal for the Haas, and yes, he must have damage. He does. He's lost about half of that front wing, and he will very likely peel into the pits at the end of this lap. Not sure what happened there. I don't believe he was fighting too hard with anyone as he comes into the box to get rid of that front wing. But like I was saying before that accident, we have got cars very, very close here. Rassam and Calvin basically pushing each other through the track. This is being caused by Formula W holding them up. We've then got Red Car, who, like I say, has backed off a little bit. But out in front, Bobo absolutely controlling this race. 2.3 seconds the gap to his teammate, Formula W, then 4 seconds off of that. As here we go then. This is getting very close now between Rassam and Formula W, and this is giving all the impotence, even more contact between Calvin and Rassam at the rear end. Surely someone's got to make a move soon, because this train, it just feels like it's never going to end at this point. As Formula W pits, that is most certainly going to release Rassam and Calvin. Formula W obviously looking for the undercut. No space down the inside, definitely not close enough there. Maybe on the climb up the hill, riding on board with Calvin, we can get close enough now then. Are we going to look to the outside? Not enough room. Nowhere doing around here. That is a very early stop, I must admit, from Formula W. I wouldn't have expected anyone to box that early, but the undercut can be incredibly powerful around Monaco, so I can't say I exactly blame him. Because I think in the background there was a Red Bull almost sliding into the wall just a touch, but it doesn't look like any damage was done. So they will continue on. But we've got a gaggle of cars here. We've got the RB, the Aston, the Red Bull, and the Ferrari. As Calvin picks up a penalty then, that is most certainly going to hurt his podium chances. Not ideal for the Williams driver, who has just backed off a tad off the rear wing of that Mercedes. Jules has left the session in 9th place, as we've got a car round, and that is Seb. Don't think there's any damage done, there isn't, so evidently just a spinner, as Calvin now comes into the pits. Now what's going to be interesting here is, oh, big contact between Formula W and Vittoso, and I was going to say that the interesting thing will be, where does Formula W come out compared to Calvin? But that contact you would have to assume would have put him behind, but Calvin serving some sort of penalty, I believe, and Formula W will still take the position. But that was big contact there between Formula W and the Haas. We've got a yellow flag for a Sauber of Lorpe in the first sector. Whether there was contact, I'm not sure, but there is damage, I believe. Oh no, there isn't damage, sorry, to the Aston Martin, but he was battling incredibly hard with Saviour, with G-Star, and I believe there is an M plate off of that V car. As they come through the tunnel, we'll have a look. I do believe it is the front right M plate. No, never mind, evidently my eyes deceive me. Nobody with damage then, so all going well so far, as we've got two cars wheel to wheel into the chicane. Formula W round the outside. Lorpe just has to give up the position. There wasn't the traction for him on those tyres, and Formula W up into 9th place, trying to make this undercut work, trying to overtake as many cars as possible. We've now got Jules, who is on the back of Lorpe. Not sure if Jules has been able to rejoin the session as of yet, as Kisa comes into the pits, as does Jules, and Formula W has now got 2.8 seconds to Vans. Up ahead though, Armar is starting to gain on Bobo, his teammate, towards the end of the stint now. Both of the Alpine drivers on mediums. And if we take a look at the tyres, 9 laps old, as we've got a yellow flag in the main straight for Smith, which is a bit of a weird place for a yellow flag to be, admittedly. I don't see how someone would crash on the main straight, but he's definitely got damage. He's missing both end plates. on that Mercedes-Benz. So what has happened there, I do not have a clue. But that is a weird place to lose it. But as I was saying, the two Alpine drivers controlling this race really, but Armar starting to put a little bit of pressure on his teammate as Rassam comes into the pits, and you would have to assume within the next lap or two that will force one of the Alpines in to cover off that undercut. As Redcar now moves up into third, it will be Saviour that comes out in fourth. G-Star also into the pits. It's Rassam that's going to come out in fifth. Is he? No, he's actually going to come out not only behind Formula W, but behind Vans, and that is really going to hold him up. That is not ideal for the Mercedes driver. 10 lap hold hard on that Red Bull. Formula W, the undercut looks to be working well. Could he even undercut the leaders? Dan, who is currently in last place, gets a 3-second time penalty. We've got Smith in the pits to repair that front wing. Lorpe just coming out of the pits now. He was quite high up, but obviously had that, I believe, lock-up at the end of Sector 1 and went into the runoff. But Formula W is driving a phenomenal undercut here. Is there any chance that he can undercut the leaders? He undercut very early. Those tyres 3 laps old now. So probably not at the peak of performance, but definitely better than Bobo and Armar's 10 lap holds, as Armar and Redcar box. So Armar coming out will ride on board with Formula W. Saviour also pits. Is Formula W going to get out ahead of Armar? Armar, you can see ahead of you on the right side of your screen. Armar does get out ahead, but only just, of Formula W. And will that extra lap hurt Bobo staying out? Because Formula W and Armar now on fresh tyres, both absolutely flying, you would have to assume. And you surely would think that Bobo is going to be in at the end of this lap to cover off that undercut. We will see the Alpine driver surely peel into the pits at the end of this lap as he comes through towards Rascasse. Swings it in. Does he box? Yes, he does. So this is really important now then. Armar towards the swimming pool chicane he comes. Formula W pretty much right behind him, grazing the walls on those medium tyres. That won't do them any good. Can Armar undercut his teammate? Dan with another 3-second penalty. Currently in 17th position. Armar coming down the main straight. Bobo coming out the pits. This is going to be oh so close between the two Alpines. Bobo going to have the inside line, and that is mighty close between the two Alpine drivers, but Bobo retains the lead. And I really thought for a second that Armar had undercut his teammate, but with the tyres switched on, can Armar try and fight his teammate now that he's close? The gap was around 2 seconds, now 7/10 of a second. Can he try and put some pressure on his teammate? Although they are now running split strategies with Bobo on the mediums, Armar on the hards. Formula W behind on the mediums and not really gaining at all. This is going to be very interesting to the end of this race now, as we've got a yellow flag in Sector 2. See if we can work out who that's for. I believe it was it was either Calvin, it must have been Formula W actually, because he's fallen behind Rassam and Calvin. So Formula W almost on the undercut of the century here around Monaco, evidently struggling. And I mean, yeah, look at the car sliding away from him in the swimming pool. He puts the traction down and he's nearly round again into the wall just before Rascasse. Formula W really struggling. No damage on that car, but no traction on that car whatsoever for the V-Carb driver. I really don't know what he's going to do out here. I mean, they're only 6 lap old medium tyres, and he is struggling like a madman out there. Very, very interesting, and especially to a lot of the other drivers as well, is look how sideways he's getting towards the exits. There's just nothing he can do. as we've now got Calvin in 4th, obviously with that 3-second penalty. We've got Bobo in the lead, 9/10 to his teammate Armar. This is a crazy race so far. We've had bits of contact. The strategy is really what you want to be looking out for, as Bobo leading, but 2 split strategies between the Alpine drivers. Formula W, I hate to say it, might be out of this race with this tyre life, and just the way that the car's handling is just not what you would want in a race car. Rassam currently running in the final podium position. Up and down the grid. We don't really have anyone close now. We've got Jules behind Kieser as Saviour in P7 sets the fastest lap of a race with a 1:13.152. But no, the closest battle we've got on track currently is Jules versus Kieser. I don't believe there's any threat of rain, as there was in Tier 3 yesterday. But again, it all just really settles down now. Bobo just doing enough to control this race. Nothing spectacular, but doing enough to just sit in control, not overdrive the car, as Formula W has lost another position and part of his front wing and gets a 3-second penalty now. He is really struggling. A massive contact into the wall. I would have said he's lucky to not be out after that sort of contact, as again he's nearly round and towards Raskas, just holding up his teammate now. Surely comes into the pits, and he does, and that releases Saviour, who is currently the fastest man on track. Formula W decides that is enough and retires in the pit lane. Red car gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple corner cutting warnings. MJ, who I kept an eye on in the first couple of laps, pitted on lap 1, currently running P10 on his set of hard tyres that he's been on for 14 laps. A very interesting strategy, but obviously working decently well for him. We've got Jules, who, like I say, is just behind Kieser. Our closest battle now is actually Vans versus Seb versus Vitulso. The Haas at the lead of the train. We've got the McLaren behind him, and then the Red Bull behind him, who was obviously hit by his teammate. Are we going to have a move now into the hairpin? Yes, we are. A massive slide, but the move works. And I mean, fair play, down into a difficult part of the track to overtake in. He's thrown it down the inside. There's no contact been made. You can't argue with a move like that, and that moves Seb up into 12th place. We have Vitulso now relegated to 13th and Vans into 14th. Vans not going to look for it down the inside just yet. Not enough room down there. We've got Nels in 15th place. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 2, and that is Dan, who has gone into the runoff, having a torrid weekend so far, as Vans gets a 3-second penalty, and I believe Dan has been lapped now, which is not ideal for his race. As who have we got behind us? A V-carb. Yeah, that will be Saviour, and Dan is lapped. But already having a torrid weekend, 6 seconds I believe in penalties, and now going into the runoff as Formula W leaves after his race was ended early in the pit lane. Not ideal for the V-carb driver. Was running a good race. The undercut nearly worked for him, but the tyres died away very quickly and he was not able to recover. Got the damage, got passed by, I believe, his teammate, and that was the writing on the wall for the V-carb man. As we go back to our battle for 13th place, sorry, between Vans and Vitulso, it's the closest battle on track at the minute. Gap between the leaders currently 1.7 seconds, as Armar and Bobo just control this race. The Alpine 1-2, you can't really see anyone getting past them. 6.1 seconds between Armar and Rassam now. So you really can't see anyone challenging the two Alpines today, barring some sort of incident. Van's very close to the back of the Haas of Vitolso here. Maybe looking for a move round the outside of turn one. There's contact. Nearly into the wall goes Vans. I would have said that is more on Vans, to be completely honest. A bit of a crazy move towards the outside and just gets the door shut on him. And I think Vitolso was well within his right to shut that door. And they stay in the same places for now. Both of them very wide into the hairpin. We do have another little close battle on track. Saviour versus Red Car. The gap about a second between the V-Carb and the McLaren. This battle is for 5th place. Red Car with a penalty anyway, but any true driver knows that you want to make the move on track. You don't want it because of a penalty, especially when it comes to, you know, moving into the top 5 or the podium, or especially the win, as Jules gets a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. Saviour is just sort of inching towards the back of that McLaren. Having a few slides here and there is the V-Carb. I would say the McLaren of Red Car is better on traction, obviously on hards, compared to the mediums of the V-Carb. Both been on them the same amount of laps, so you would imagine that the hards at this point of the stint will be running a bit better, as Saviour does just snag the wall towards the swimming pool chicane. The gap sort of evening out about a second, as we've got Nels and Vans. I believe Vans has now... No, Nels was behind Vans. It was Vans and Vitolso that were fighting, but the gap between them now 1.3. Nels now joining the battle and only 0.8 behind the Red Bull. So a very interesting battle here, as we've got the two Haas's sandwiching the Red Bull. That battle obviously for 13th and 14th place, as Nels now picks up a penalty, so won't be gaining that position through penalties as he picks up one of his own. Just snags the wall there as well. A lot of people doing that today. Very difficult corner. Understeery setups, very typical at Monaco. And we've got another yellow flag, and that is Vitolso into the wall at Raskas. Damage on that car. Calvin gets another 3-second penalty. And Vitolso into the pits, going deep at Raskas. Not what you want to see for the Haas driver, and that is probably his chances in this race squandered, as lap 21 of 39, no safety car as of yet. Very, very surprising. Obviously in the Monaco Grand Prix we've got another Haas incident. I believe that is Nels, well it has to be Nels, in the first sector. No damage to that vehicle, as I believe that's Bobo, yes, lapping Nels, and up through the grid goes Bobo, then lapped now 14th place and coming up to the back of 13th. And the race is all really evened out now. We haven't got any very close battles. We've got MJ that's just overtaken Jules because he's been in the box. Lorpe also moves ahead. You wouldn't assume that the McLaren of Seb will, although it will be close coming out of the pit lane now, but the Red Bull with the tighter inside line, and that will see him keep the position. MJ 19 laps on those hard tyres, currently sat in 9th place. How those tyres are even still alive, please don't ask me, because I do not know. It seems we've got ourselves a little tyre whisperer in our Tier 0 action tonight, as Saviour comes into the box from 6th place. You would assume he'll lose probably 7th to G-Star as... oh no, G-Star pits. So Kisa will probably take the position from Saviour, but besides that, that is going to be all Saviour loses from that pit stop onto a new set of the hard compound tyres, and you would imagine he will go to the end of the race now on that set, as we've got MJ who moves up as G-Star comes out of the pits now, and Lorpy moves ahead of his teammate. 20 laps MJ has been on those hards. Absolutely no clue how he's pulling that off. 2 seconds the gap then between the leaders as both Alpines stay out for yet another lap. Both basically running the same race on the same battery percentage, absolutely everything. So definitely making each other equal tonight here in the Principality. We've got Rassam in third in the Mercedes. A pretty danger-free race for Rassam. Not really got anyone ahead of him, not really got anyone behind him. Just a nice chill Thursday drive through the streets of Monaco. He'll pick up a podium for it as Vitulso gets a 3-second penalty. We should actually check the penalties now then. So we've got Calvin with a 6-second, Red Car with a 3-second, we've got Jules and Dan with 6 seconds, and then Vans, Nels and Vitulso with 3 seconds as well then. As, oh, on board with Rassam, he's spun in the tunnel. Somehow, with my luck, we were on board for that. But a big spin, I don't think there was any damage. It wasn't that hard of a hit into the wall, but you definitely don't want to do that more than once, Rassam. That was very, very lucky that he didn't take off a wheel or take off a part of the front wing, as MJ has made a trip to the pits. Gets off those tyres. Rassam now comes into the box. Kisa gets a penalty, and the gap between the leaders has dropped by about a second, so you would assume Armar probably pushing, maybe boxing this lap, I would have to assume. We did see this before the first lot of pit stops with the Alpines, where they'd close right up and then Armar would take the first stop. It will be interesting to see though, as Jules gets another 3-second penalty. Will Armar be able to execute the undercut this time? Because he is much, much closer than he was to Bobo last lap. Obviously they're on different strategies, so Armar will presumably be going on to a set of the medium tyres, whereas Bobo will go on to the hards. This could be very, very interesting between the two Alpines. As does Armar pit? No, he doesn't. He stays out. So we are going to have a bit of an on-track fight then between our two leaders, the two Alpines, as we come towards turn 1. Not at all close enough. Bobo just saving his battery for now as they make the climb up the hill. I mean, they've got 33 seconds behind to Saviour, who is in a very good position, to be honest, to take third place here. Calvin right behind him with a penalty. You've then got Red Car, who's 3.6 behind with a penalty. Rassam, who is 7/10 behind him, but is going to need to get through the traffic before. And Saviour is only on 2 lap older tyres. So Saviour in a very good spot to get the final podium position here, and a great drive from Saviour, I must admit. Very close between the Alpines here. It's just difficult to see an overtaking place around Monaco, as they can get as close as they want, as we've got a couple of cars into the pits. Lorpy, Seb and Dan all into the box, presumably for the final time, barring no safety car, no incident. And it's Bobo that comes into the pit and blinks first then. So you would have to assume that Bobo will inevitably take the lead of this race again once Armar pits. The undercut's so powerful around Monaco. And Bobo slots into his box, puts on a set of the hard compound tyres, and will come back out into the race in second place. No danger for Saviour, as he's not nearly close enough to the Alpine driver. Calvin putting a little bit of pressure on the RB, just keeping him in check, making sure he doesn't fall asleep at the wheel. But Saviour looks to be dealing with it perfectly fine. And as I mentioned before, Calvin with a 6-second penalty. So even if Calvin were to overtake, Xavier really doesn't have much to worry about. Red car in 5th, another 4.7 off of their battle, and Rassam clawing at the gearbox of the McLaren driver. He is on some of the youngest tyres as Jules leaves the session again. It's not ideal for the Red Bull driver, currently running in 9th, but does have a couple of penalties to his name. But Rassam, he's got to be getting frustrated behind this McLaren of red car. Made the undercut, and now it looks like he's finishing, well, as we've got a Haas off there of Vitulso as his teammate Nels passes him on the fresher mediums. Armar comes into the pits, and Bobo does reclaim the lead by a hell of a margin. 3.5 seconds the gap between the two Alpines, and unless there is some sort of major incident, you would assume that is your lot around the streets of Monaco. Again, anything could happen. You know, it's MRC, it's F1 league racing. Anything can happen in these league races. We could have a sudden safety car, we could have a crash for the leader. You just never know. But if you look at it at face value, a Monaco Grand Prix, you would assume this is going to be your finishing order. Kisa, you would assume will have to pit again on those hard tyres, since lap 10. You would have to assume that he's going to need to box again, and that will demote him out of 7th place to about 10th, 11th-ish. You'd imagine he's struggling quite a fair amount, as the gap between Armar and Bobo coming down by about a second on that lap. Obviously, Bobo only just coming out of the pit, so we'll have to warm up his tyres, but a second gained for Armar, a lap difference in the tyre life. Can Armar maybe mount a late challenge on his teammate? It seems, I must say, this race has seemed very coordinated from the Alpines. Like, you pit now, I won't attack, I won't defend, and just come home for the 1-2. Which, if so, fair enough. It's the most simple way to win the Monaco Grand Prix. If you've got two cars up there, nobody can get past you. You're basically guaranteed the victory unless you make some sort of silly mistake. I must say, the man I do feel bad for, though, Rassam in the Mercedes-Benz. He's been tucked up behind that McLaren rear wing for the best part of 4 laps now, and there is just nothing doing for the Mercedes driver. There's nowhere he can get past. He really could have been long gone up the road now towards the back of Calvin, and yes, he will gain the position, maybe even 2 positions after the race because of the penalties, but it's just not the way you want to do it as a driver, and he could have even got Xavier with the undercut had he not been held up for so long. And I mean, there is still time, and he is a little bit closer than he has been in previous laps, but not enough of a gap doing, although he gets a very good exit. Overtake is enabled. Is there going to be a move on as we get closer? It's just not enough room around these streets here in Monaco. Kaiser comes into the pits for Ferrari, as I was just mentioning. About 18 laps on those tyres. There's big mistake there, it looked like, from red car sliding in towards the hairpin. But Rassam, he is so much quicker. You can just see it in the traction he's got, the way he's taking the racing line. But there's just nothing doing for the Mercedes driver when it really comes down to it. Red car is placing his McLaren in all the right spots to be able to defend, and there is just nothing that Rassam can do. Overall, not many other battles. We've got Calvin as Bobo sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1:13.0, about a 10th quicker than our previous fastest lap. We've got Calvin on the back of Xavier, Rassam on the back of red car, but besides this, there's not really any battles going on. We've got Lorpy on the back of Jules, who is an AI car, as he left, so Lorpy will move up into 10th position and now set his sights on the rear wing of MJ in the Williams. But Rassam must be getting frustrated behind red car, and when there's frustration in the cockpit, it can sometimes lead to a bit of a feisty move, especially at Monaco. So it makes a little bit of contact with the wall, nothing major. Rear end complaining a little bit under the load of the throttle pedal, but nothing crazy towards the the chicane, sorry, once again. Just nothing doing for the Mercedes driver. Out in front though, Bobo absolutely loving life. He's not had a challenge all race. Now with 8 laps to go here on the streets of Monte Carlo, you really can't see anyone challenging him. He is lapping cars like it's fun. He is knocking down the laps. He has done absolutely everything he's needed to do today. Armour has been the Bottas, really, has been the perfect second fiddle. Hasn't really attacked, hasn't really defended. He's just been the perfect number 2. Saviour, in my eyes, driver of the day so far. A great strategy from the V-Carb driver. Launched him up into 3rd place. 10 seconds off of P2, but holding on well. We've got Calvin in 4th with a 6-second penalty. Redcar in 5th with a 3-second penalty. And then we've got Rassam stuck behind the rear wing and actually losing time. So this is helping Calvin, because Rassam at one point was very close to actually being able to get the position from Calvin at the checkered flag because of his penalty. But because of Redcar slowing him down, Rassam isn't going to gain that position. So you're provisionally looking at Rassam finishing 6th and Redcar 7th. You've then got an 18-second gap to the Aston Martin of G-Star, who's running a very lonely race. 18 seconds to the car ahead, 12 seconds to the car behind, which is Kisa on some new medium tyres. You've then got MJ, who, great strategy, by the way, definitely a shout for driver of the day. Might not have had the most spectacular drive, but started 18th, pitted on lap 1 onto the hard tyres, stayed out, I think it was something stupid like 21 laps on his hard tyres. Now currently running 9th, well into the points paying positions. An incredible race from MJ. We've got Lorpy in 10th, who was involved in the wars, as well as Seb in 11th, Jules in 12th, who has unfortunately disconnected, so will probably lose a few more positions, although he has got 28 seconds to Nels and then another 10 seconds to Vittorso. Both Hasses having quite the dismal race today here in Monaco. Vittorso does also have damage, is missing the front left end plate, as quite funnily actually Nels, I believe, missing his front right end plate, so they're at least matching each other, but nothing major going on with the two Haas drivers. Armour slowly creeping to within a second of his teammate. Don't know if this is just, you know, for the spectacular finish, you know, cross the line wheel to wheel together, or is this, screw this, I'm going to challenge my teammate, I want to win the Monaco Grand Prix. Everyone knows it's the crown jewel in the F1 calendar. Everyone wants to win this one. I myself managed to win Tier 3 yesterday. It's always the Grand Prix that you want to win, you know. If there's 2 Grand Prix you can win, it's your home Grand Prix and it's Monaco. And all of these drivers will be pushing like crazy till the end of the race, hoping that Bobo can make some sort of mistake, or maybe the Alpines come together. But barring no major mistake, it is looking like an Alpine 1-2. But which Alpine will finish in front, as Redcar gets a 3-second penalty, and so does Rassam. So that will definitely harm Rassam's chances of moving up the order due to the penalties. Dan gets another 3-second penalty. Armour, he's getting close, but it's just not close enough. We will check the penalties again. So we've got Calvin and Redcar on 6-second penalties. Rassam is on a 3-second, along with Kieser on a 3-second. Jules and Dan with 9-second penalties, and then both Haas cars and the Red Bull of Vans on 3-second time penalties that will obviously be awarded at the end of the race. Tyre wise, everyone's been on their tyres a relatively long time, barring Smith and Kieser, who pitted quite late. I don't imagine we'll see anyone else into the pits, as everyone has made a 2-stop race. Van's actually making a 3-stop, as well as Jules, so both Red Bulls 3-stopping. Evidently not really working the best for them, as they sit in 13th and 15th place. But Armar again just gaining little by little on his Alpine teammate. Definitely not close enough. Xavier sliding throughout Raskas, but look how close we are now on board with Armar, looking back from Bobo's car. This is going to be quite the interesting finish to this race. The Alpines evidently look like they are potentially going to battle each other come the end of this Grand Prix. We've got a yellow flag in the final sector. I believe that was for Vitulso, who does have damage, but has had damage for quite a while. Maybe it was Kieser then, who had some sort of kerfuffle, but can't see any damage on that car, so not sure what the problem is. But as we look back again from Bobo's car, the gap realistically staying the same between himself and Armar. Very hard to follow, obviously, with the dirty air around the streets of Monaco. Not the easiest race to be able to follow closely and then overtake at. You know, everyone always says it's one thing to gain on someone, it's another thing to overtake them. And it's hard to do both of those things here in the Principality. But Armar's definitely giving it a good go. Bobo, like I say, is just doing everything he needs to control this race and put this one to bed. Rassam, it's really been the story of the night for Rassam, stuck behind the rear wing of the McLaren. Even though the McLaren makes a massive mistake, I think Rassam is just a bit scared on those tyres. He doesn't want to go for a big ballsy move, throw it down the inside and hope it sticks, which at the end of the day is fair enough. I mean, if you don't want to take that sort of risk, you don't want to take that sort of risk. I mean, here, you know, gap on the inside, could have thrown it down there, gained the position, but you know, if you don't want to make those sort of moves, you are just going to have to sit behind people at Monaco. You do have to take a hell of a lot of risk if you want to win this Grand Prix, get on the podium at this Grand Prix. And speaking of the podium, it is pretty much a foregone conclusion that Xavier is going to be the third man on the podium, flying through the swimming pool chicane. 9 seconds off of Armar. 7 seconds to Calvin now. He has driven a very calm, quiet race, Xavier, but a great strategy from the V-Carb driver. If we enable the position change, Xavier's up 2 from 5th place. Calvin up 3. We've got MJ up 9, as I mentioned, with that crazy strategy starting from the very back of the grid. We've got Seb up 4, as is Kieser. We've got Jules, who's down 5, obviously disconnected, so we can't really take that into account. Vans is down 3. Big losers really are Rassam and Lorpiers. We've got a yellow flag for an Aston Martin. Who is that? That is G-Star Snipes. Again on the main straight. A crash. I don't get what's going on down there. There's massive front wing damage, so you would have to assume that G-Star will box, although very late in the race. But that is the second time now we have seen a driver crash on the main straight. And I mean, that wasn't exactly far down the main straight. I mean, if we ride on board with Seb here, we'll see where the damage is. You know, you're not coming out of the corner and then you're having a tank slap up because of the traction, and that's sending you into the wall. So, I don't know what these drivers are doing. But obviously very difficult in Monaco, difficult conditions as always, as we've got another yellow flag presumably behind us for... Oh, we've got Mercedes of Smith round at the final corner. Now that makes sense to me. He's come out of the final corner, he's probably had a tank slapper, old tyres, and he spun. Fair enough. Bit of damage on the Mercedes as well. You would assume he will stay out. As we've got another yellow flag. And that is Vans Racing doing a full 360 towards the swimming pool chicane. Big damage on that Red Bull. And in the last sort of lap and a half here, this has really opened up. And look who is here. It's the leaders. And as much as ghosting is on in MRC, visually it can be quite distracting. Although Bobo is going to get DRS because of Jules, the AI. So that is going to help him try and get away from Armar, as we've now got a car off again, and that's Vans again into the wall at turn 1. Even more damage on that Red Bull, and you would have to assume he'll box, although it is the last lap. Into the wall again, even more, and a torrid race for the Red Bull drivers. But out in front, the two Alpines have absolutely controlled this race. 39 laps, and there has not been a single one of them that an Alpine hasn't led for. But Bobo out in front has absolutely carried it. He has not made a single mistake. He has driven absolutely faultlessly, and an incredibly deserved winner. Armar has tried to put pressure on him, just not been close enough. It's so difficult to overtake around here and so difficult to catch. Just not enough pace in the car, but he's given it a valiant effort to P2. But it is going to be a Team Enstone 1-2 here in Monaco tonight. Tier 0 MRC goes to Bobo, goes to Armar. It is an Alpine 1-2 in the streets of Monaco. Bobo wins the Monaco Grand Prix. It is Armar in second. In third place, it is the V-Carb of Saviour. Fourth place, just coming through the final corner now, will be Calvin. You will then have Red Car coming home in fifth. And Rassam stuck behind the rear wing of that McLaren for many, many laps. Will come home in sixth on track, but will take fifth. Kisa coming through the swimming pool chicane now will take seventh. But the story today here in the Principality is Team Enstone Alpine domination. Kisa rounds the final corner to take seventh place with a few penalties to his name as well. G-Star is going to take eighth. It will be MJ with a brilliant strategy from 19th on the grid, and admittedly my driver of the day, MJ, from 19th on the grid to 9th at the checkered flag. A great race from the Williams driver, and a brilliant strategy as he reverses over the line to finish the Grand Prix. Wow, a very interesting Monaco Grand Prix there. Mainly ruled by strategy, not many on-track overtakes, but I mean, it's Monaco. You know, it's a very difficult race, but one that was definitely thoroughly enjoyable, as we see the two Alpines take to the podium along with Saviour in the V-Carb. Bobo receives his winner's trophy, raises it aloft to the sky, and Team Enstone 1-2 in Tier 0. Well, we will cut away here then, as we've got the race winner Bobo also taking the fastest lap. MJ driver of the day, and admittedly, like I say, my driver of the day too. Most overtakes being Kisa, and cleanest driver being Armar. So, there are your race results then, ladies and gentlemen. Bobo wins the Monaco Grand Prix with Alpine 1 and 2, Armar second. Down the rest of the grid, we have Saviour in third, Calvin takes fourth, Rassam fifth, Red Car sixth, Kisa seventh, G-Star eighth, MJ ninth, Lorpy 10th, Seb 11th, Nels 12th, Vitulso 13th, Jules 14th, Vans 15th, Dan 16th, Smith 17th, and Formula W with a DNF. Well, thank you very much everyone for tuning in. My name has been JP. I do hope you have enjoyed this one as much as I have. An incredible Monaco Grand Prix we have just witnessed. We will be back on Monday for the Belgian Grand Prix, so make sure to tune in for that. Like the stream if you haven't already, it does help out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you are new. Racing on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays every week. And like I said at the start of the stream, we are getting towards the back end of the season now, so it is not something that you want to miss. The championships will soon be decided, and you don't want to miss it. Thank you again to all for tuning in, and we will see you on Monday for MRC taking over Belgium.